Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I am Sean Anderson, Most Valuable Podcast, and the upcoming segment is from our full Fast Break podcast that we recorded. And if you do want to check out that full podcast, head over to Blog Talk Radio/The Fast Break. You'll be able to find the full podcast over there. But anyways, let's move on now to our boy Adam Silver. The NBA commish was recently on Colin Cowherd's radio program called The Herd, and he was asked about the one-and-done rule, and Adam Silver said, "My sense, it's not working for anyone. It's not working for the college coaches and athletic directors. I hear from them. They're not happy with the current system, and I know our teams aren't happy either, in part because they don't necessarily think the players who are coming into the league are getting the kind of training that they would expect to see." So really, he's summing up by, it's not working for the players, it's not working for the coaches. The only thing that's working for is college basketball and the people who promote college basketball and the games. So, obviously March Madness. So, looking at this, we've talked about the one and done rule before, but we've never had a real statement from Adam Silver, a person in this much power, especially saying like, yeah, I want to get rid of the rule. So, if the NBA got rid of the rule, how much of an effect would it have on not only the draft, but just in the NBA in general?
I don't think it would have as much of an effect as we all think so. I just think it would give a lot more players more options, because if we get rid of the one and done, how I'm looking at it is, if you're a player that says, you know what, I'm good, and I'm using LeBron James because he's one of those. Oh, I'm a LeBron James. I'm a Kobe Bryant. I'm a Kevin Garnett. I can come out of high school and play in the NBA. Sure, go ahead. But if you're a player to me that's like, yeah, I could technically go to the NBA draft like a Miles Bridges, but you know what? I want to go to college. I want to up my game. You can do that. You can even go to the G League. You can go overseas. It just opens up opportunities for players to where you're not just kind of linked into, I have to go to college for a year to get to the NBA.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing where people are kind of missing the mark here, is where it will benefit players in general. I mean, it'll benefit a guy like Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons need to go to college. He would have been great just going straight into the NBA. But the one thing, I forget who said it. It might have been Cowherd, but it's like, you look at this year's draft class and a guy like Lauri Markkanen, or a guy like, Jonathan Isaac. He might not have the pull as a Markelle Fultz, the pull of Alonzo Ball. So he would have to go to college and put up his rank, because, if Lauri Markkanen didn't play the way he did in college, we might not see him as a top 10 pick. We might not see a guy who's risen up the boards like a Zach Collins be a top 10 pick, or be a top 15, be a lottery pick. So, obviously you're still going to see players go to college, players grow in college. Like you mentioned, Miles Bridges stayed in college, but you see the hyper athletic guys, Josh Jackson, Lonzo Ball, Markelle Fultz, come out, and
Lonzo wouldn't have had to go to college. He could have came right in.
He and his dad wouldn't have made him go to college. He would have put him straight in the NBA.
He wouldn't have went to LSU, and LSU would have been crap this year.
UCLA. Anyways,
that's how much crap they would have been. I just called them USC.
And you called them LSU.
He's on the Ben Simmons hate train still.
Anyways, but looking at this, I don't think it's going to have a huge effect, but I do like that Adam Silver's doing this, because you look at constantly, Thon Maker too, he went through trouble just to enter the NBA draft. There's people that just college is not right for them. And it's like, I already know I'm going to the NBA. Karl Anthony Towns is probably like, I know I'm going to the NBA. Well, why do I need to go to college at all?
And basketball's a little bit different, where the one thing, when I talked about this for the college side on the Primetime Podcast this week, the thing that I even mentioned was, the big thing that everyone talks about is, well, the NFL, you have to stay 3 years in the NFL. Why shouldn't it be similar for the NBA? And the big thing I think of is, the NBA and basketball is different. I can come out at 18, and if I have obviously the body and the skill, I can compete in the NBA, whereas if you're coming out of high school at 18, I'm not throwing you on a football field with NFL pros, because you will get murdered.
Yeah.
You will get destroyed, and you need to beef up and really become a man body-wise in those 3 years of college, is really the main reason why they don't throw high school kids out there onto the field right after graduation. But with the NBA, Adam Silver also mentioned how there's the talk to get rid of it, but there's also the talk to say, hey, maybe 2 years in college. And I lean more towards, if you're going to touch the one and done rule, get rid of it and just open it up, let all the flexibility go to the player, to the athlete, to where they want to go.
And I'm completely on your side too. I mean, you look at this whole thing. I mean, I think he even mentioned it too. Ben Simmons was a guy, he knew he was going to the NBA. He didn't care about college. He wasn't there for college. He was there for basketball. He was there just to do his time so he can go to the NBA and make money. I mean,
then we get the conversation of, well, he doesn't care. His team didn't make the tournament. And really, that is not good for the prospect coming out of college because it puts a negative lens on him. And then also, it's not good for the product of college basketball because you don't have one of your top players that you're marketing even in the tournament, even trying to make the tournament.
Well, I think it's one thing where I don't think Ben Simmons would have cared if he made the tournament or not. I think no, but that's what I'm saying. I know he didn't, but I'm just saying like that's something where it's something where he didn't care if he made it or not, and even if he did, it was more of he went to LSU, not a typical powerhouse.
They even made
in college
the NIT,
basketball.
and he was like, "Nah, I'm good."
Yeah, I mean, I look at this, and Dave, I want to get your opinion on that. I mean, because you're kind of a guy who likes to look back a little bit, and let's look back at 2016. Say they got rid of the one and done rule that year, but Ben Simmons still went to college and stuff like that. So you could have a guy like Markelle Fultz. This whole draft class that we're looking out of came out in high school. You're looking at Ben Simmons, Brandon Ingram, Jaylen Brown, Dragon Bender, Chris Dunn. Those 5 players. Like, how many of the players we're looking at now would be top picks if they came right away? So you're looking at Markelle Fultz. You're looking at Lonzo Ball. Looking at this, like, would you be more inclined to take a 19-year-old that had a year in college or a star like Markelle Fultz who didn't play in college? How would he adjust to playing around his different teammates, playing in a high-level situation like that?
It's such a rough position because the NBA draft is almost weighed unfairly towards potential rather than what have you done for me lately. It's entirely off of where is your potential top end, how great could you be if all the stars align in the right order. And that is why the younger that they can get people, the better. They feel like that we haven't seen them scrape their top end yet. We're not even close. This is like a guy who, like, if we take Lonzo Ball and his high school performance and what he was able to do there, and be like, well, we have an elite passer, wonky shot, but good shooter still. And he looks like he could be long enough and strong enough to be, body style of a next Jason Kidd type player. Yeah, I could see him going 1 or 2 again. Like, out of all the names he listed, I could still see him right there, 1 or 2. Like, not even a question. It's the earlier you can get to them because we do have such a good foundation in America for young youth basketball with with all the travel leagues, with all of the high level competition available to them. But the problem is in the coaching. Actually, it's a lot of these coaches don't necessarily give the benefit of that or the best possible results out there for all the kids. They sort of shine it on 1 or 2 kids on their team to ride them to success. So I think that if you can get a guy at 18 coming onto your team at a basketball level and get your trainers with them, you have a better belief in my guys are with them. We're going to get him up and running to the top end potential rather than let him go to college for a year and work under a college system where he's splitting time. He's not going to devote 100% time to basketball. So I feel like it weighs heavier to go towards a younger kid who hasn't been through another year of college like that.
Well, that's something I want to mention because I'm looking at the top 100 of high school recruits before they came into college. And these are the guys that we're looking at now. Markelle Fultz, Harry Giles, all these guys. The number 1 player ranked that year was Harry Giles, got a grade of 97, obviously went to Duke. And now we're seeing Harry Giles where he's a guy with injury problems. Well, he had injuries coming into high school too.
But we knew
those
about
were lingering issues.
The 2 that he had in college as well.
Obviously these are things that, and we see Harry Giles then play in college and it's like, oh, well, this guy might be a late lottery pick now because of his hindrance. You look at a guy like Markelle Fultz, who probably the unanimous or probably the majority of people would take him number 1 overall. He was ranked 7th. Then you look at a guy like Frank Jackson at 10. He's not a guy that's I don't know if he even declared for the lottery because he didn't get that much playing time at Duke. So you see the change that could happen in 1 year. Ricky, would you looking at this as a high school player? Say you're a guy like a Jason Tatum or one of these players and had athletic skill. Would you say going to the NBA is great. I'm going to go right away, or would a guy like Jason Tatum, I'm going to go play for Coach K, get some experience in some type of an NBA level, and at least play against some of my peers, show it off, and try to improve myself. Would you what kind of fence are you on?
I think it's a little overreactionary to say just because we're getting rid of the one and done rule means that everyone's going to say, nope, I got to come right out of high school.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a flood.
And what I think we'll go back to, it's going to take time to get there because right now, and the big thing where Adam Silver mentioned, talking to the coaches, college coaches don't like the system, the NBA coaches don't like the system, because right now what is happening is kids are going to college, they're just playing that year, and then they're coming to the NBA. And I know, Dave, you mentioned like, oh, it's all about potential and everything, but because we have a flood of one-and-doners right now, I kind of feel like we have to draft on potential. We're going to draft this kid. Like, we talk about Markelle Fultz in Boston quite a lot. And what we're talking about is not drafting Markelle Fultz, what is he going to be year one? We're saying, oh, draft him, and then in 3 and 4 years, he'll be where you want him to be. I think what we will get back to is after a few years of not having the one and done, if it gets axed, is there will be some kids that come out that feel like, you know what, I don't have to go to college. I can come out straight from high school. But we will see more of the, like I look in 2005, in the top 5, we had one freshman, and that was Marvin Williams. The rest were sophomore Andrew Bogut, junior Darren Williams, sophomore Chris Paul. You go 2004, and besides Dwight, who was one of those that came out of high school, in the top 5, the only other person that wasn't a junior in college was Sean Livingston, who came from Peoria High School. Then go back to 2003. That's when obviously we had Darko and LeBron 1-1.
Who?
Darko Milicic. Some would say the best out of the top
I know that
5
one.
there.
Who's the other one?
LeBron James. Just a nobody.
I don't know if we've
LeBron
heard
James.
him yet.
And that's where we see kind of a little more one-and-dones with Melo and Bosch coming out one. But D-Wade was a junior. Kaman was a junior. Kurt Heinrich was a senior. I think that some of these NBA teams, because we will have the kids staying that actually want to be there, there might be some that develop where they go, hey, you know what? I want to take this guy because he is more developed and he's had that 2 to 3 years that if I draft this 18-year-old, that 18-year-old's just going to have to do that here on my team.
And that's pretty much something that I want to get to is, you know, we look at a guy like Buddy Hield. Comes out, junior.
He's the one we're talking about.
Guy comes out, junior, pretty much ready, or he was a senior, sorry. He was senior, comes out.
Wooden Award winner.
Wooden Award winner.
Yeah, put some
ready
respect
to
on that
go.
name.
He's a top 10 pick. And obviously, we see the growth that he's had in Sacramento once he was traded over. I mean, he was shooting over 43%, really comfortable in the system he was in. Now looking at one-and-dones, looking at high school players going in and looking at the high bust rate, or it's pretty much a hit or miss if you're drafting a kid top 5.
Yeah.
If you're drafting a high school kid top 5, it's pretty much hit or miss. Are you more worried about the team picking him? Are you more worried about the players' decision to come out? Are you like how looking at this whole thing? High schoolers
It's all
coming
on
out.
situation, because I also throw in, this is one that I know Celtic fans are happy to throw right in our faces, is Jaylen Brown. You look at Jaylen Brown at the end of the year, not exactly what we thought he would be when he was drafted in 2016. But yet again, you look at it, what team is he playing for? What situation is he in? Put Jaylen Brown on, I don't know, the Phoenix Suns or even the Pelicans like Buddy Hield is in. Will he have that similar kind of success that he had? I know it wasn't like amazing success, but that success that he had late in the year, and then Buddy Hield, like you said, once he moved over to the Kings.
Well, and then looking at like high school players,
Yeah.
Dave, I'll get another example you could throw out there is when Amari Stoudemire went 9th overall, drafted by the Suns, and then they got Steve Nash falls into a position where he fits into the D'Antoni offense. He's able to fit there, able to fit off of Nash's pick and roll.
Yep.
Really thrives in that situation. And then obviously once Amari left, really didn't thrive anywhere else, and he really thrived in that situation there in Phoenix. So it's pretty much. I mean, what I'm trying to get to is there's not really a difference between a college player and a high schooler, because if
There is.
no, what I'm saying is
Depends on who it is. If you're LeBron
but what I'm
James,
saying,
then no, there's not.
what I'm saying is, you know, obviously outside of talent, you know, if a guy goes into if he comes out of high school and same player goes into high school or goes straight into the NBA draft as a high schooler or goes in to the NBA draft as a sophomore. It doesn't matter, you know, you could be a Jaylen Brown or you could be a Markelle Fultz right now and get drafted by a playoff team and be put in a great situation, or you can go to the fucking Nets. So, like, there's a thing where, it's just really the situation that matters and not the player, because, you could be drafting a player and, yes, you might not see a ton out of him in high school, or you might see a ton of him in high school and now, wonder how that adjusts over. But as long as you're able to coach him, as long as he wants to be there, as long as he has the drive, he's pretty much going to end up as a great player because you see the potential. It's pretty much easy to see the potential that you saw in these high schoolers and how they transfer that over to college. So is the one and done? Are we kind of making too big of a deal, like Ricky's saying?
No, I think in an ideal world, what you said works out. And if a player has potential up to here, regardless of whatever situation, eventually they will get to there. And ideally, yes, most situations don't work out that way. Honestly, my biggest concern for the one and done rule, you're talking about, kids in high school and decision making there, is I don't like how scummy it got, like towards the end of the one and done, or before the one and done rule was made, where, from 95 on, where we had agents going to high school games and, trying to lure in kids into being like, oh, dude, you're going to be in the NBA draft. You'd be a top pick. You should sign with me. I'll toss you some money up front now. And, we'll get into business before we can.
So instead of having that at the high school level, we just moved it to the college level.
And well, the difference is...
we moved it up a year.
That's all we did. The difference is... At the high school level, I feel like there's another level of separation. There's another level of protection in college versus the high school level. And personally, I feel like the older you are, the better you can deal with situations. It's just experience throughout life.
And I know this is a football reference. I was going to make the joke unless Pete Carroll's your coach.
Yeah, and he'll hook you up then.
Yeah, he'll hook you up too.
He got your back. But yeah, no, honestly, like for me, it's more so just the fact that I think it's in the player's best interest if they're a fantastic, if they're a top 5 player in high school, then yeah, they should be able to qualify to go to the NBA draft, but it shouldn't be open to all high schoolers, because I can see kids throwing away, potential college scholarship, like full ride deals, because they were told that they had a shot at being in the NBA draft.
Well, and that's one thing that I want to bring up, and that it's something that there's a great documentary about Lenny Cook, and it was shown on ESPN. This is where I saw it. Lenny Cook was a guy who came out in 2002, undrafted shooting guard, had offers on the table from North Carolina, Seton Hall, St. John's, Miami, Ohio State, and just turned him down and went to the NBA draft. Agents were promising that dozen teams were wanting him, seriously considering him. They'd guarantee he'd be first round. Then goes undrafted, and then he pretty much falls off because he just wasn't able to survive. I mean, this was a high school kid not being able to make it as on his own. He was just thrown out to the wind. I mean, that's something that it's. I think what really the thing is that the NBA needs to do a good job of, like you're saying, make sure the risk is known to these kids that, hey, you can't trust everybody that's saying you're going to be the next great. You can't buy into your own hype, because a lot of these kids are going to be like, Lonzo Ball, a guy that I'm not, saying that he doesn't have talent, but Lonzo Ball, a guy that has a dad that's pushing him, you're going to be the next greatest player of all time. You're going to be a fucking stud. You're going to be amazing. And Lonzo's like, well, my dad's saying this, and I'm, tearing up high school ball.
Big fish, little sea, man.
Why can't I do it? And he goes in, and then teams are like, well, he's got an awkward shot. He's can't really score. He's scoring against kind of bums out in California, so I don't know, we'll pass on him. So it's something where I think the NBA needs to do a good job, and I think they have done a good job with this new adjustment where kids can declare themselves, go try out, and then pull out if they don't feel what's going to happen. So I like that, and I think that's going to help high school kids. Anyways,
I wonder if they do kind of a pseudo that. Let's say they get rid of the one and done, where they could have it to where, let's say, person X, okay, I've committed to such
Duke.
and such school for next year, Duke. Okay, but I'm going to declare for the draft. And if there's going to be a certain workaround where the NBA says, okay, yeah, you can declare for the draft, and just like a person that would and can back out, you can still by that deadline. I wonder if colleges would be okay with, okay, you're committed, but if you commit, you're mine and not necessarily...
Do you lose your eligibility by committing?
Or are we going to have coaches that say, oh, you're going to declare for the draft? We pulled your offer. You can no longer
I think it's something where that might be stated. It might be difficult because, obviously deadlines of being able to pull out of school, but still, if you're making your intentions clear, like, hey, Coach K, I'm going to declare myself eligible. If not, I'm coming to Duke. Maybe that's something. But then again, you have to declare at a certain time for colleges. I mean, obviously, it's May 1st.
Yeah, that's where the
problem
signing
is.
day is.
If they have X people on their list and they've got signings from everybody but one, and it's down to, well, I can wait 2 months to see if this kid's going to go to the draft, or I can get a for sure top 150 player.
But I think what we're talking about is like, you look at Harry Giles was #1, and if he goes to Coach K and say, hey, Coach K, I might go to the NBA draft, I'm not sure. I think Coach K is like, yeah, we'll hold the roster spot for you because this was a kid who was the #1 touted prospect.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is the fact that the NBA and college basketball aren't on the same page, and because they're different.
They'll never be.
I know, but I'm saying they're different organizations with different goals in mind. So because one is completely dependent on the other, and it is an interesting relationship the way it works out, they do need to have some level of cooperation to plan this going forward, because if the NBA decides to make the rule you have to be 20 in order to come to the NBA,
well, that just benefits
college basketball. Yeah. And if they do it the other way and they say 18 works, and we don't care if you take a year off or not, it's just if you're 18 years old, you can jump in the draft. But then kids could lose their college eligibility to play D1 ball because they were told by some agent that, oh, you're going to get drafted.
Well,
you're not.
And I think the whole thing we're coming down to, and I know that each situation is different, and it's very easy for some people to, like Sean, you mentioned it, believe in their hype. It's going to come down to you need to make the decision. Like, if I'm coming out of high school and I'm going to go to the NBA, I need to make that decision. Am I going to take this risk? Or am I going to go to a college? Maybe the NBA says, hey, you know what? You can go to the draft, but if you don't want to go to college, but you don't feel like you're good enough for the draft, how are they going to make the G League? They could develop that G League into like their own pseudo minor leagues. Like
they actually pay them enough to survive.
A team still wants to pick him up. A team will still have to pick him up. So if he goes undrafted, a team's still going to have to be like, yeah, we want you on our team. I mean, not every minor leaguer in baseball is like, oh yeah, hey, I'll go to the draft. If not, just put me on one of your minor league teams. Like a team has to want you. So that's something that but
I feel like a team. I feel like a team would be more inclined to pick up an 18-year-old kid and take a flyer on him if it's like, hey, we're going to pay you, like Dave said, enough to live and throw you in the D League, but you're ours. I would take that more than, okay, I'm drafting you and you're on my NBA roster, because the one example I was going to throw out is even look at 2015. Karl Anthony Towns, I kind of want to give that, like, he was the rookie of the year. He's just that Minnesota team hasn't hit their stride. But you look at D'Angelo Russell and Jahlil Okafor, both one-and-doneers, both haven't lived up to the hype that they were coming out. However, the guy drafted at 4 that everyone bitched at Phil Jackson that he took, who played overseas a couple of years and actually developed, is a guy that we're looking at with more promise, definitely more so than Ja and D'Lo.
I don't know. I think Ja is fair, but then you look at Kristaps, it's something where people didn't have that high expectations, and then he exceeded those expectations. Now I think those expectations have been brought down a little bit because of the situation with New York. And you look at LA.
So with the Knicks.
You look at LA, D'Angelo Russell, he's just in a shit situation, and people always saw it as shit situation because of Kobe. So I don't know. I understand what you're saying there. Anyways, final thoughts on this. I think that it's good that the one and done rule has been is hopefully going to be relaxed and kind of taken away, because I think it's going to be good for.
Just get rid of it.
I think it's going to be good for the NBA draft. Thank you. Oh shit. It's just one of our videos scared me a little bit. Don't forget to check out that one, and also don't forget to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. But thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.